Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to review the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. It was called The Least Dangerous Game. As the episode begins, the ensigns are playing some kind of Klingon-themed role-playing board game with a video component featuring a Martok knockoff, which I guess is a Ferengi-made hologram, which is not unlike the actual Klingon-themed VCR game that came out in the 90s, which I played a few times and quite enjoyed. It was a really cool game. Apparently, First Officer Ransom has been riding Mariner pretty hard, and the two of them go on a mission with Rutherford and the engineer guy, during which the first officer pulls a bit of a switcheroo, sending the engineers down to the surface to play ambassador, while he and Mariner fix an orbital lift, aka space elevator, that I guess brings people to and from the planet's surface. Though I don't know why ships don't just like land on the planet. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, they have this space elevator. Meanwhile, Boimler is distressed that one of his fellow lower ranked officers experienced a meteoric rise to captain. And when Tendi tells him that it's largely because he kept opening himself up to new opportunities and advises him to do likewise, he takes this advice to heart, and it causes him to agree to play a sport that he isn't any good at with Shrax, during which he gets pummeled. After which he's asked to join a Bajoran dirge choir that Shax runs, which he also says yes to, because he's trying to say yes to things that I guess on the idea that it opens him up to experiences and opportunities which, you know, could help him get to captain, which is his whole life's goal. Mariner, of course, is frustrated that she has to work on the elevator pretty much by herself, while Rutherford and the engineer are down on the planet experiencing the lap of luxury in the company of some very affectionate planet natives, which frustrates Mariner further. When a very large, aggressive member of a hunter species who is stranded because he can't get down to the planet due to the broken space elevator, which again, I'm not sure makes a whole lot of sense, who is also being hosted on the Cerritos while he waits for, the repair, invites Boimler to be his prey, so that he can engage in a hunt while he waits, instead of just being frustrated while he waits that he can't engage in a hunt, because I guess he's from a very strongly hunt-oriented species. Of course, Boimler agrees because of his new endeavor to try to say yes to everything, but then instantly regrets it when the alien enthusiastically yanks a tooth from his own mouth and paints Boimler's forehead with his own blood to mark him as his prey. Back on the planet, Rutherford and the engineer guy get into trouble when they accidentally commit a cultural faux pas by going into the wrong place without their belly buttons out, and they call for help from Ransom, but he refuses to do anything because he doesn't want to give up on fixing the space elevator, which he's having no luck doing, despite Mariner's pleadings to go down to the planet and help. Boimler visits the alien guy in his assigned quarters only to see that he's engaging in some kind of gnarly pre-hunt ritual, which soon ends, beginning the actual hunt, which takes place in the halls of the Cerritos, causing Boimler to run into cetacean observations, where he jumps into the water with his shoes on, which doesn't sit well with the dolphins, of course. He then exits the pool when the alien hunter finds him there, still running around the ship and trying to get away from the alien, at which point he runs into the captain, who at first is sympathetic to his plight until she realizes who it is that he's running from, because she had a nice brunch with him earlier and thinks he's the bee's knees and just allows the hunt to continue. Back on the planet, things are getting worse because the natives discover that the engineer has an outie belly button instead of an innie, and they plan to sacrifice he and Rutherford to what would appear to be a sentient volcano, which Ransom still thinks isn't a reason for him to go down to the planet, which causes him to tell Rutherford to just stand up straight and speak from the diaphragm with authority and tell them that they can't sacrifice the engineer. This prompts Mariner to don a spacey skydiving suit thing and jump off the space station, diving towards the planet to help Rutherford, in a scene reminiscent of that scene from Star Trek 2009 where Sulu and I think one other crew member dive from the ship onto the drilling platform. It turns out that Ransom was deliberately being stubborn about going down to the planet to help because he was trying to prove that Mariner would eventually crack and disobey orders if she thought she could help or if she thought it were the right thing to do, which of course is exactly what happened. So he calls her to tell her this and that it's time for them to go down to the planet and that he'll meet her at a certain spot on the ship in order to suit up and go down to the planet with her. But of course, she's already on her way, which she tries to pretend isn't the case, so he won't know that he was right. Meanwhile, Boimler accidentally triggers the video element of the board game he was playing earlier when he tries to hide from the hunter and bumps into it. And it randomly plays a portion of the game narrative about being a warrior and not backing down from your enemy, which prompts him to cowboy up and go on the hunt himself to try to become the hunter instead of the hunted, which doesn't go very well and causes him to catch a spear to the chest, at which point the alien announces that the hunt is over and that they don't actually kill people, they just hunt them and catch them, and that Boimler did well, and that he's going to say nice things to the captain about him right before he passes out from blood loss while the alien takes selfies. Mariner makes it back up to the top of the elevator by the skin of her teeth before Ransom finds out that she was already off, the platform, at which point he announces that they have to dive down to the planet, which she is exhausted from having done already, which causes her to fall asleep mid-dive on the way down in the suit, which is pretty funny because her arms are just flapping around. Once they get down to the planet, they're able to prevent Rutherford and the engineer from being dumped into a big lava pit when Ransom realizes that if he bares his very sculpted torso, it will impress them because they're a health-conscious society, and that will allow him to negotiate with them for the release of Rutherford and the engineer, which of course he's able to successfully do. Before the episode closes, the gang is back together and continuing where they left off with their game, none the worse for the wear from their exploits. I thought this was a good episode, but mainly because of their Easter eggy type stuff. Like, it was great to see Martok again, and to have them sort of reference that game that came out in the 90s that I was talking about. That was really cool. But other than that, I didn't think there was anything all that great about the episode. The chase thing was very funny, the way the alien, behaves. But I feel like we've seen this story before where Boimler's like, okay, I'm going to try to say yes to everything, or I'm going to try different things to try to, learn and advance myself. Or if it wasn't Boimler, it was Rutherford or Tendi. I feel like we saw this story before, but just with a different character. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but it didn't feel fresh. But yeah, I mean, it was a typical episode of Lower Decks, and it had me laughing, which is good. So that's about it. Oh, I think that the alien that was chasing Boimler was also voiced by, I think his name is J.G. Hertzler, the guy that voices Martok. But when I looked on IMDb, it didn't list him in the cast at all because it was a very bare bones cast listing. It didn't list any of the crew besides like the ensigns and the captain and like the first officer. So I don't know if it was him, but I think it was because the voice sounds very similar. So that was very cool also. But yeah, that's really it. I'm looking forward to next week as usual. I'm going to get out of here for now, but I'll be back with a review of that episode once it is released. Until then, my friends, I wish you peace and long life.